Losing a spouse can be devastating. Not only is it an emotional tidal wave, but there are financial implications as well. What happens with a surviving spouse? How is life going to be different? What are some of these financial implications? This is The Wealth Technique. I'm Michael Baker. Let's get started. Welcome to The Wealth Technique, where we help you build, protect, and transfer your wealth. We're talking about losing a spouse, something that is a traumatic and definitely life-altering event. I have to tell you in advance, my professional expertise is limited to the financial scope of this equation. I understand that when we talk about losing a loved one, especially a spouse, there are tons of emotions, all kinds of emotional trauma that has to be dealt with. And grief is a powerful, powerful factor that impacts all of us that go through this type of transition. What I want to focus on in this video is specifically the financial things that you want to think about or consider, hopefully in advance, as you prepare and plan your wealth. We can lose a spouse in a number of different ways. There can be an accident, an unforeseen illness. Sometimes we just reach our life expectancy. However it happens, it's never easy. And what I will tell you is that stress is at level 100. While we can't divorce ourselves from the emotional impact of losing a spouse, what we can do is try to control some of the financial impacts of losing a spouse. And with that, there are several things that you need to consider when it comes to this type of transition in your life. Your spouse will forever have a new blueprint, both emotionally and personally, but also financially. I often tell couples, we can't control the emotional side of this equation, but what we can do is we cannot allow the financial piece to compound on the stress and trauma of losing a loved one. One of the first things that anyone should consider is, how will the household be impacted economically? And I start with cash flow. If someone is working, if they are retired, if they're collecting Social Security payments or pension payments, how might the cash flow situation to the household be impacted when one person is no longer there? We know that if it's a retired couple and both parties are collecting Social Security checks, the lower Social Security amount ceases. It no longer comes in. The higher of the two benefits becomes the survivor benefit, and that is the total paycheck that is now coming into the household. The other thing that you should consider, though, what about pensions? I know lots of people that have pensions that they've claimed years prior that can no longer remember if their spouse is going to continue to receive those payments. Next, what assets remain? If there are a lot of other assets available to the surviving spouse, we want to know, or you should want to know, where they are, where they located. In a lot of blended families, we see the two spouses like to keep their assets separate. This is not uncommon. But we do want to know, will there be assets there to help maintain and support the surviving spouse? And will that spouse have access to them? A third item that I think anyone needs to consider is taxes. When you're married, most couples file a married filing joint tax return. When we lose a spouse, however, there is tax bracket compression. A married filing joint compresses down to a single file or a single filer status. There is 1 year that you can continue to file a married filing joint tax return, but future years, unless you get married again, future years, you would be a single filer. This creates bracket compression. So when I talked about cash flow and when I talked about other assets remaining, especially if those assets are generating cash flow, we want to know, or you should want to know, how might that impact the surviving spouse from a tax perspective. Now, taxes aren't everything, and they're not evil. However, sometimes when you have bracket compression, someone may end up paying a lot more taxes than they're used to paying. And you want to know that in advance, or be able to at least forecast that in advance and understand how you might want to adjust things. Sometimes there are some neat things you can do with estate planning to make sure that the surviving spouse actually has very tax efficient incomes. And that is something that is every bit of a consideration when it comes to estate planning. A critical piece that you need to think about is who is going to be on your spouse's team. When we do life, we have all kinds of professions and people that help us do different things. We have attorneys, we have tax professionals, we have financial advisors. Who would be on your spouse's team? Is that team a good fit for your spouse? One of the things that is not uncommon is, especially for women, many women will actually leave a pre-existing financial advisors and tax professionals when their husbands are no longer here because they never felt like they were listened to in any of the meetings. So if you want to have a great transition for your spouse, make sure that the advisors and the team that you use is truly a team for both parties. You don't want to have this massive life event happen and then someone have to undergo an entirely new transition of their financial team. Have a great team in place so that no matter what happens, if something happens to you or if something happens to your spouse, that either of you has a great team in place to help you with the transition. So what do you think? What questions do you have about a surviving spouse? Drop them in the comment section below. Don't forget, like this video, subscribe to this channel for more videos like this. I'm Michael Baker with The Wealth Technique. We'll see you next time.